A price tag has been set on one of Manchester United's midfield targets, and it's pretty clear Manchester United know who they need to go for now. We're going to talk about all the news on Matheus Fernandes, Angelo Stiller, and Elliot Anderson. 3 updates coming in, but particularly Matheus Fernandes. But before we talk about Matheus Fernandes, we'll talk about Bruno Fernandes. Bruno Fernandes, another unbelievable stat. Whenever it's Bruno Fernandes, it's a crazy stat. We'll talk about Elliot Anderson, we'll talk about Angelo Stiller, and Dumfries available on the market and Man United exploring. So, some interesting updates coming in midfield and at right back ahead of the transfer window. So, hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to your 10-minute Manchester United news, transfer news, and update roundup show, where I'm going to round up all the latest Manchester United news into a 10-minute video for you guys. If you do enjoy today's video, feel free to hit that like button, and of course, you're welcome to subscribe if you're new. If you even exclude set pieces for Bruno Fernandes, but include them for everyone else in the Premier League, he still has the most chances created in the Premier League this season, 66. Now, Arsenal fans have been saying he shouldn't win the Player of the Season award because most of his chances created and most of his assists have come from set pieces. Yes, Arsenal fans saying that. The Arsenal side that is literally winning games through corners 90% of the time. I know, and I think this stat just shows this narrative that it's set pieces only for Bruno is absolutely false. You take away set pieces and he's still creating more chances than anyone else who's taken set pieces and open play. He's first for open play, he's first for overall. The amount of stats that Bruno Fernandes is first in the metric for is crazy. Where's Declan Rice in any of these metrics? And people say, oh, Declan Rice is a CDM. No, he's not. Declan Rice hasn't played DM all season. Declan Rice has played an advanced 8 all season. In fact, the first half of the season, Declan Rice played higher at the pitch than Bruno Fernandes. Ruben Amorim made Bruno Fernandes play deeper than Arteta plays Declan Rice. So I'm just saying that now. And considering he spent half of the season at DM collecting the ball from the centre-back, considering I saw a comp like 2 days ago of all the chances Bruno Fernandes created, it didn't land an assist, and he should have about 10 more assists. This guy is the PFA Player of the Season, no doubt. Now, let's get into the news. So there's been a lot of reports recently about Elliot Anderson. Now, what we do know is City are the favourites, but nothing is concrete. The Mirror claimed yesterday that it's almost done. He's pretty much chosen City, and City have already got that sort of sorted, blah, 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 blah. I think there's a feeling he will choose City, so the Mirror are trying to swoop in early with some guesswork, la, la, la. I said in my live show earlier today, apparently Anderson to City's sort of done, but it's come from the Mirror. I don't think anything will be done until the end of the season because we don't know if Forest get relegated, we don't know if West Ham get relegated. You know, I was talking about Tonali and reports on him, but we don't know if we get Champions League football and if Newcastle get European football. I think all these reports of the deal's almost done, you can kind of tell are fake at this point in the season because realistically, Anderson won't be done until Forest know they are safe. Realistically, João Gomez nothing will happen until Wolves know they're 100% down. Realistically, nothing will happen for Matheus Fernandes until West Ham know they're safe. You know, nothing's going to happen with Tonali until Man United know, 1, they've got Champions League football, and Tonali knows 2, Newcastle aren't in Europe. So Romola kind of added to that. Contrary to reports, nothing has been done or close with any clubs for Elliot Anderson. Forest in a relegation battle, and that's going to be important in understanding the final prices, because what was reported is that a 65 million deal was done, and I did say yesterday that I struggle to believe this story that the 65 million deal was done. 1, because 65 million does seem like a really good price for Elliot Anderson, and I could see Forest getting more. But 2, how can you put a price tag on a player if you don't know if you're getting relegated or not? I think if Forest stay up, they're going to want 80 to 100 million. I think if they go down, they accept around 60 million. And also, why would Anderson agree to join another club in the middle of a relegation battle? Anderson will agree to join and pick his club at the end of the season. He will probably pick Manchester City, let's be honest, but nothing is official, nothing is done, and that doesn't surprise me, and Romano is just clearing it up. The West Ham and Portugal midfielder has an asking price of 55 million, with Man City and Arsenal also interested. Liverpool and Man United have been linked. 55 million for Matheus Fernandes. For me, I think that's a good deal. And some people will say that's too much. He's 21. I think he's the next Bruno Guimaraes type player. I honestly think if West Ham stay up, getting him for 55 million is decent. You get João Gomez for 35 million. Matheus Fernandes and João Gomez is 90 million. Then you go and spend 80 million on the main midfielder, and you've done your 180 million sort of midfield rebuild there, 170 million midfield rebuild there. I think 55 million is a good price. I think if you can get Matheus Fernandes for 50-ish million, I would push for 50 million. 55 million set now, I'd push for 50 million. I'm not against that. Now, some people say that's way too much, but considering we spent that much on Fred, I'm not against that. But what's interesting is there's rumours that he has a 20 million clause if West Ham get relegated. And if that is true, we 100% have to go for it. But when you're hearing 100 to 120 million for Elliot Anderson, when you're hearing 100 million for Tonali, 100 million for Baleba, 55 million asking price normally means goes for about 45, 50. I would take Matheus Fernandes for around 50 million. I think he's the midfielder Man United need to get. Like, I think if we miss out on Elliot Anderson, it's not the end of the world. You can go for Tonali, you could take a risk on Baleba, there's Manu Kone. But I think Matheus Fernandes would be a bigger miss. I think Matheus Fernandes is a very unique profile in the fact that he's a 10 that's moved deeper and seems to influence every part of the pitch. I think he's done well for a side that's struggling. He's lifted West Ham. He's got a really good injury record. For me, I think that United should go all out for Matheus Fernandes. And we know that he's a huge fan of Bruno Fernandez. And there's rumours that he would pick us. Man United's his dream move because he dreams of playing with Bruno. He even said on Bruno, when you grow up, you look at players in your position. So I looked at Bruno Fernandes to learn. I enjoyed it and I tried to pick up small details from him. Now, he was a 10 at Southampton. He's now more of a 6/8. I actually think he's best as an 8, but I think that's almost made him really well-rounded, the fact that he started as a 10, so he's got that creative ability but can play deeper. I think he's got a lot of similar characteristics to Elliot Anderson, who's a little bit more secure defensively, but he's more creative than Elliot Anderson in the final third. And I think Elliot Anderson long-term will be an 8. Matheus Fernandes long-term will be an 8. And I actually think, and maybe I'm crazy, that Matheus Fernandes was the highest ceiling of the two. I just think Elliot Anderson is higher rated because he's English. And that might sound crazy, but, we're being realistic. The most we want to pay for Elliot Anderson is 80 million, yeah? The most I want to pay for Matheus Fernandes is 55 million. I'd probably pay that if he's got... Because Elliot Anderson, the Forest stay up, realistically, doesn't go for less than 80 million. I'd be shocked. I think we can get him for about 50 million. But 55 million is not the end of the world. I don't think it's awful price, especially when we send other deals. I think João Gomez is the real bargain. I think if West Ham go down, then Matheus Fernandes, if there isn't a clause, will probably be 40 million. If there's a clause, 20 million. And I just think it's smart investment because he's proven he can... do it in the Premier League. He's done it at a team that's struggling. He's really good in build-up, really good in the first phase, good at creating, good at scoring. He's pulling up a team that is struggling. He's got that mentality, and I think of the Bruno Fernandes mentality, someone able to perform on the struggling side. He's got 70-plus top-flight appearances. He never gets injured. I think he should be a priority target, regardless if West Ham stay up or go down. I think if West Ham go down, it's very likely. I do think if West Ham stay up, I don't know if we pursue him. I think it depends on what happens with Anderson, Tonali, and other targets. But I think it's a shame to miss out. So we spoke about Angelo Stiller earlier in today's live show. That basically is a 40 million euro release clause, which is 34 million pounds, but he can be paid 2 million and he has no control over it for them to get rid of that clause. And they might do that because 34 million for a player of Angelo Stiller's quality is a steal. And they know realistically if they pay him 2 million, another team could come in and pay 55 million for him. Now, Epcom Konar is saying that they're planning to demand 65 million for the star, which means they're probably planning to pay him 2 million so they can ask for 65 million for him in the summer, because I think with Real Madrid, Man United, and Liverpool linked, I think Stuttgart know that someone might pay that release clause. Now, we know from past reports, and this again was December, that Angelo Stiller is really appreciated internally at Man United, and the club have been tracking him and will continue tracking him in the weeks and months. So I think if his release clause stays in place at 34 million, which I don't think it will, I think Stuttgart will pay him to increase that. I think Man United could potentially consider it if we miss out on Tonali and Baleba and people and Wharton and Anderson and people like that. I don't think he's top 3 in our list, but I think he's one of them we look at. A bit like Sesko wasn't top. It was Delap and Gyökeres were top, and then we got Sesko. Anderson and Tonali are top, and I think Stiller's more of an 8. So Wharton and Fernandes might be ahead of Stiller in that 8 role, but if we don't get them, we look at Stiller. We also know from Ben Jacobs as well that Angelo Stiller is high in the thinking of United for potential midfield options and highly appreciated by both Bibble and Wilcox. And one thing we learned with Sesko is, Prem proven doesn't always mean better. Delap was Prem proven, he's been crap. Sesko was more expensive, but from abroad. I think for me, if you sign 6 players, if 3 come from the Prem and 3 don't come from the Prem, that's a good mix. I've always said I want Matheus Fernandes, João Gomez, and either Anderson or Tonali, which is 3 midfielders from the Prem, and then Jai. But for the left back, I'm happy to go for Nathaniel Brown. For the centre back, I'm happy to go for Schlotbeck. And I'm not against Angelo Stiller if you can't get an Adam Wharton. He's not a Casemiro replacement, but he's someone that can compete with Maino. Last but not least, I want to talk on some Denzel Dumfries news. According to Team Talk, Manchester United are among 4 clubs ready to launch a move for Inter's Denzel Dumfries. He has a 25 million release clause, which is about £21 million. Under Amarin, in the summer, this makes sense because Amarin's in charge and he plays a 5 at the back. But 1, it's Team Talk, who's not a reliable outlet of information. And 2, we don't really play with wing backs. I think we need an attacking fullback. I'm not against it. But if we were going to get Dumfries, we should have done it when Amarin was here. Thank you for watching. Bye.